May I remind all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this teaching called Lamrim, Stages of the Path Leading to Complete Enlightenment. Allow me to read about a page or two from this Lamrim text to give you the blessing of oral transmission.
Simje Hinle, Janga Jimbala so be Savun Taba Le Nego Dang Tatuke, Diritan Jubal. Yabanina Jibaranze, Bache, the Sabashati Junju, Le Simje, Nam Jawali. Sanji Shirandala, Jela, Kushi, the Simje, Lamiche, so the Simji so, Jenang in Josum to teach. So Jawatawa Jena, the Jotan, or Serimatan, La Machembara, Lambata, Luju, Shebatan, Shedajevatan, Shambatan, Yingje, Gomba, Sol, Jong, and Dendro, Cheva, Sword. Cheva Dalim in the Simijavate, Simijavata, the Chavano, Jubi, Sanjay, Tele, Simjel Teni, Jimbaso, Yonso, Zovara, Simjel, Gochewe, 6 Vachavali, Sumba, Tarasamba Show. Changju Simjel, Lekan, Jite, the drawing in Johnny, the domain to attribute Simjel, Pimatan, Shinaba, Lenin, Jonger, Simjel, Teni, Sanje, Komo, Lami, Yikin. 他等没有龙蛇刚长大，我找不到这的中为单位得到现在才把这些机会，这马上把你。着送的人嘎样样没嘎样没嘎样，嘎样没了，啥只有。现在等着也打算等你们呢，爸爸等嘛也现在呢，这边用我跟我等的现在没人。 这个平时顶把当谁表演，你别等你要多把了，搞个谁没？甚至的这不些说的你这那么这不没把你什么也东写写着马上把了赢了，上去那么这不大家都把你把那什么也东了，我写写的写吧，写吧，里边终于出的上那让个东了，我给几张啥我没啥我送的。 第一类是你那了，下这我头先被帮着你的那那下这，像我们爸爸他们那么是用说的早上节这个是到得到便当没变，只不过这把能得到给到给这样你让东啥因为现在人的些什么的那么现在东了我自己都晓得。 这不上学的上学就什么的，如果那个叫西京的地早你这边谁个你们几岁那么？这光把啦，都是来了，今天写空白的，到我点不就那写的啥个为了就，老师不叫我来让没把它就把人的第一的人这边对别早。上次如果来说，现在今天上学呢，这边是那么个把些康些都说白。 空白的把你们先去动哎，先去动几这那么，上天到啊多年讲那没把嘛就把那些的呢，我在那的告诉我的你们，他们随着这些说，他你们随得到了他们。 送出去叫我，你把它结巴下的，把到一些呢，小把的年纪总没些小就是吧。像就是把朋友些把送，那么接住些呢，他们把你们可能对了呢，些把些给送，让这边现在讲小把等，你那没到小街的，大街的，如果有没到你上学晓得什么些呢？ 其实甚至同老百姓大呢上就接受马家把没接把没那行，马家把马家把没接把没那行，拍的没得哇， Da jin ji be de la sur de ne jin de jong sin ji la ti de ne ji jo yin su yi dong ba la nian zhe ba xie bu ku long yam zhu lo su be ding yin jin de 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 xie be Chö la na tsar ngau xie dong jiang mi xik be go gu yue jiang qiang ba de ning xie xiang zhu yi we sen me ne yin xin xiu yin zhe du xiang ba xia gu bi sar jiao yi ne xie jiao yi ne song de su mi jie su zi jiu la so ba me gu mo be ne si ba jie ju ren zhuo sa yue ba la gong ba nang mo康龙北些那个让这个就是了，有的去地北去呗。甚至些讲我家老外在那我说我这把钱不早出没做当提前呗，社会对全部没一把罪没罪。他们现在了都别对，他们现在了老接近。de la lo ji jing lo ji jing lo de la lo ji chung ji chung de la ji chung de la ji chung de la jie ba jie na ni lik ma jie na de de me de ba de da be ge de da be ge la da de 得了罗中别朝当到的着的，到别当别送上我做工这工这啦，当的就操作第一混第几这把中上样的的罗江的啥不上完，那么这个吧，来同没中同没中行，搞啊这的。就是不提前学过了学的没动。谢谢吧，你大的为啥子给我别这样？如果写说不到什么结别，去年我那写什么来着？把叫我写把去给说呢，学习不？第几招了哇？对吧？也强说长别那些我别人的贡献别恰当差不多是些。让大家说个这吧，这些说我到老家呢，什么结吧，老爷把这点不等。所以说个时候，得了，说嘛，他把些话他把不讲说嘛，让你写的这吧，别他当我了说，看了也有看给两百点，写的浪也瞧个我当不呢，那么前面人把里边声音别当的，老么写吧嘞，就是个么子了。可嘛，农么什么当担心，集体老家了，那吧，那里边没小给。就懂得不过把些的让来弄些给些女小猪是没有多把的别态度上呢些数把的对不那我他的样子他心中的个啥好玩的是呢他小就是这些他这个就是些的就是了嘛这个就是我这个的他们这基本这么这有的对他看见इन सिमचे की बात है राव ये बात है कि जो तो कर रहे हैं इन सिमचे काटी दा इन काटी थे बसे इन सिमचे दाखिल जेन में इन पे युवा तो कर दो ये राव जी दिशा में कर दो वो दिए कि ये पे युवा दा निमे ले बात हों को करे वो तो हो सकता है
Geshe read from page 57, volume number 2 in the English translation of Lamrim Chemo. To page 62 and stop on the top of page 62. So for us to be able to train our mind for developing spirit of enlightenment or bodhicitta, Changju Semi-Tibetan, is to contemplate the benefits of cherishing others and the demerits or the limitations of self-cherishing attitude. As we have talked about this before also, that for us to be able to develop bodhicitta, we must reflect on how sentient beings have been kind to us in many different ways. So that will help us to get interested in and have inspiration for developing bodhicitta. And also we should reflect on the limitations or the demerits of self-centeredness or self-cherishing attitude, and that will help us to reduce self-cherishing attitude.
我这这到变成这个现在哎呢，但同时这个形式这不是三下压上来，那动作也不用紧。我这三下压上的来，那这个动作也不用紧，这那考虑这拉不些年，拉不结果的是。这这个能一个，那心情的呢，那就把它看见心情的偏把这看这些呢，我底下看这些，我这了点呢，那是被他都个上学光把他个有张，现在这个下呢。现在朋友底下天呢，结果嘞，是终究空着的哇。心情呢，大家了，上去就着了，也这个心底下的心情里面接受是，这里看见，上街里贴话些，哎，那心情的这个这个贴吧当，那这开始当牛子下当个么了，这开始是，上街个我们做完了，上街当心情呢这个，说说偏多这个的时候，看见他。上这个呢，别说的结果是心情马超啥呢？现在心情的性格和心情用过是吧？现在上街完了呀，因为上街的心情呢，大说是各地就是两个的是，因为我那时候的呀，上街的话现在现在差距这个是心情能住下都能住下了，我的。
In order to illustrate the importance of cherishing sentient beings, an example that's given here is that of a fertile land. And farmers, who know the value of such a fertile land, they will cherish it, they will take care of it because they know, they will get good cultivation of crops, right, from that kind of a field. So in the same way, those of us who are seeking complete enlightenment or the fruit of enlightenment, we must learn to cherish the field of sentient beings. So due to their kindness that we are able to engage in all sorts of practices, if you will. Think about generosity of giving. Right? We could only practice it because of sentient beings. Or any other kinds of benefits that we would like to bring about, these are sentient being dependent, if you will. And so therefore, we should really, cherish the sentient beings because that is where, we are able to find our spiritual growth and development. And so as great Bodhisattva, Mahasattva Shantideva states in Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life on page 57, those of you who have the text, and I quote, "Living beings and conquerors are similar. From them you achieve a Buddha's qualities. How is it that you do not respect living beings just as you respect conquerors?" Unquote. So what Shantideva is telling us is that in terms of kindnesses, and for us to be able to enjoy the fruit of enlightenment or achieve it, Buddhas, enlightened beings, and sentient beings are equally kind to us. Yeah? And we know Buddhas are kind to us, especially Shakyamuni Buddha is the source of our Dharma or the teachings, right? And because of his teachings, we are able to follow it and do the study and practice. But when it comes to actually practicing it, sentient beings are very crucial and important. It is in relation to them, it is for them that we are able to engage in practices. So from those angles of the perspectives, we can see that both Buddhas and sentient beings are equally important to us in terms of achieving our spiritual goal. And that being the case, and how come, actually we are asking this question to ourselves, how come that we have so much respect for Buddhas and so much faith in the Buddhas, but we really don't seem to care about the sentient beings? We don't respect them. As a matter of fact, we ignore them. We say, oh, who cares, whatever. So why is that? If they both are equally important for us to be able to achieve enlightenment, or metaphorically speaking, we are the farmers who want to cultivate the field of spirituality, and the field is the field of sentient beings, and grow the crop of enlightenment. So how come, as farmers, we don't learn to cherish this field, And whose way is that? I mean, that's the kind of question we are putting ourselves, to ourselves.
that simple so any masimala direction in so and so much so you want masimana say any big cursa longju the simple then big $6 so cause mega machine did what cursa there is longju the head down the decision you want to go shamba the ning go na any did was it dead or was it negam to machine that kept in the Sanji of Kawatala in the Simjan Rally was kept to that being the same Jabata, that to Jevan Drubi, Sanji Mitila Rally, Simjan, then Jimbaso use so much what did that Tatu Negam Shenane, and the Korea Deji of Gagatelia, and the Champagne in Yungoris, Tatu Shena, in the Sanji of Kawata, the Simjan in Yungoris, share the Ya Kenya Sani, Takanje. Simjan because Luton should then do it to Kazi. Because in the Pendo Shen, Pendo is in the Kazi. What thinking that way, when you cut to Dani, and it came in Hamal of Session, Damgasha was this or
So in the middle of page 57, we find it stated that when we engage in harmful actions towards sentient beings, including killing them, or stealing their property, and so on. All these negativities will lead us into more difficult situations and what we call unfortunate rebirths in the future, in hell and other difficult situations. On the other hand, if you learn to stop being harmful to sentient beings, but learn to benefit them through generosity, through patience and so forth. And these positive actions will lead to positive results. So in the short term, our positive actions cultivated dependent upon sentient beings will yield fortunate rebirths in the next life and in the future lives. And eventually this will lead us to complete enlightened state, which is our final spiritual destination. So we think about all these things. We have to really seriously consider as practitioners, the problems and the negative outcomes of negativities and harming sentient beings, and the positive outcomes of cherishing and benefiting sentient beings, both in the short term and the long term cases. So even in this life, all our comforts and pleasures and are dependent upon sentient beings, isn't it? I mean, all our needs could be met, because of sentient beings, and so therefore we should learn to appreciate that and cherish that. So if we cultivate negative states of mind, afflictive states of mind, such as hatred, then that will, of course, lead to unfortunate states of rebirth. On the other hand, if we cultivate positive attitudes such as love and compassion for sentient beings, this will definitely yield positive results here and hereafter. So as we consider all these pros and cons about all these matters, so the message here is we should make the right choice. Where we want to be, what we want to achieve, and what can help us to achieve our goals and make the right choice.
And there was that Dewarva, Mundu doing she. But in the same jail, a pemba down Nova Shumores. There's a maze, Jidegi Pigeta, come the Dewa Yuti, take a bit Sanji Homa, or Tizola in the big Hen Pemba down, Hen Nova Casa, Hen Pemba de Jumores, and the flat picket 사양 뭐 제시세도 네 상바 야신을 거기 그 레벨라이 롱주르 작보세야다 가가 그때 솔음도 가가 투시모르 내가 들이 용아가 에네 가르사데리 다 셴 심젤레 페발 셰바데니 용 에네 디부 임바데 에네 뭐 먹어래라 다 가지 상지 고모데 때도 봐 그래서 지대 그게 코에 부서도 다 아장상레스
At the bottom of page 57, we have a pretty substantive quote from Arya Nagarjuna's commentary on Bodhicitta or Changchup Semdal in Tibetan, where here it's translated as Essay on the Spirit of Enlightenment. And explanation given on what Nagarjuna has stated is this, that we really look deep inside us. What do we really aspire for? What do we want? So what we want is goodness and happiness, isn't it? And what we really don't want is any kind of problem and suffering. So the goodness and happiness that we are seeking, it comes from beneficial actions, right? Benefiting sentient beings, positive actions. And the problem and suffering that we do not want, it really comes from harming sentient beings and doing the negativities. So understanding that cause and effect relationship among those things, we should make the right kind of a decision and follow our decision. So if we engage in positive actions and benefit sentient beings, we are able to accomplish both the mundane kind of a comforts and happiness here and now, and also super mundane, blissful experiences of enlightenment. And so when we look at, in samsara, of course, those who have so much power and resources, and what comes to our mind are Indra, the king of divinities, and Brahma, and all of them. So these are very powerful mundane deities. They have so much pleasure, resource, and power, just unimaginable to us. But all of these temporary ones are the results of, doing something positive and benefiting others. Right? If these great temporary things came, from others, right? And as we talk about this, if we do positive things and benefit sentient beings, eventually we are able to achieve Buddhahood and enlightenment, right? If Buddhahood is possible from benefiting sentient beings and creating positive actions, there is no need to say how all these temporary, good things can, of course, can come from benefiting others.
다 심지어 뱀에 다 지부지 다 심지어 내바시나 데레도와 내바시나 심지어 인로서 다 니와 동에 사상의 동에 이니 이다 제금의 동에 전절 직디서 다 내바들로 같이 가다자 년송의 동에 용조버데 이니 심지어 내바데는 중고레스 데레도와小심지어 지와 다 지지와 같이 심지어 팬다고 배운 직시 다 내바시에 지부텔 님이 쓰고를
No. And so at the bottom of page 57 and over to page 58, continuation of the passage quoted from Nagarjuna's commentary on Bodhicitta, is first it tells us the benefits of cherishing sentient beings and benefiting them, and then the second it tells us about harming sentient beings and what the negativities bring forth. And here it says that if we harm sentient beings, then we could find ourselves in difficult situations here and hereafter. Hereafter meaning in the bad states of rebirth, such as hell, where we usually talk about immense suffering of heat and cold, or in the hungry ghost world, where the suffering is because of famishing for food and starvations and thirst and all of that. And then in the lesser kind of animal world, where animals, the bigger ones eat up the little ones or the smaller ones, and anyway they just kill and eat each other. That kind of a suffering. So all of these sufferings in the unfortunate states of rebirth are the results of negativities, especially harming sentient beings.
다 거기 네가 막 공부를 제위나 디고다 이 나게 좀 셈디 깨발라 에는 그래서 Simje dunge meseba tiye simje never shipping pedo chibe dribu never shipping the shego lended Navia Ganga shego. The lended Navia Ganga shego is that the chief shum good lam the yonzo shego or the shego said that this is the third of that lendel big Lagnataya the two or said that Karza give shumuda dig to more level of Maza Shane. And you da charism ya gomni kazu ya do satan ya maro ta dik ngi mi ngi wa ji ko ta ko ji.
So what is really the real message here, in all of these things just stated, is this, that for us to be able to develop bodhicitta or a spirit of enlightenment, it is important for us to be able to understand the difficult situation in which sentient beings are and find their suffering and pain unbearable to us, isn't it? And then also know, from where all this unwanted suffering comes from, isn't it? So this really connects us directly back to really understanding deeply the law of karmic actions and their outcomes and results, isn't it? It's do good, do bad, have bad, and there is no, any kind of mistake in the calculation of the karma here, right? There's no such thing as, Geshe didn't say that. That is my footnote, right? Do good and have bad, and do bad and have good. That doesn't work, It's in the law of karma is infallible, and so it's very important for us to deeply understand the law of karma and outcomes, and not only understand it, but really follow it, right? So practicing really, it comes back to respecting the law of karma and following it accordingly. I mean, that's the big message here, and which means the things we learn in the context of small scope practitioners or initial level practitioners, and what is common with intermediate level practice and practitioners, all of those things are important. There is no such thing as somebody say like, can I skip all of those things and then I cultivate the love and compassion and then I can go somewhere? No, really, thank you. There's no way to do this, right? We have to understand what is taught in the small and intermediate scope level practices and adopt it and build that as a foundation and build up other practice and cultivate love and compassion for sentient beings.
Oh, te chata ngande ta de kinde thon gilu pesa mo na chi komja ta ma de jamse ta ma nyota mo ma ju do nyota mo ma ta ga na ta khashik be ene be dubcha ni ne de be ngel phasa che mo yu ge de ya lam thom mo de ten cha ba shi ma de ko de nyam la ni ya bo yung ko wa ta chi ga menge de ti le ji chong ye de ene ha lo wa che da nanti jer mo che ini be hibu yin lam shi mo hibu yin se ati o tinja dosa me ba si ju no ri ta me dosa langa yo ro ha lo ya je ma ta ya ka tin le na ko na so so ka tin ro mo to ko mo ro ji lam la ha lo ya de je yo ma ro sta che ro pa zu de de ti in ji mo ji sang tong ko res.
So these things really also reminds us how especially in the Gelugpa tradition, we give so much importance to the Lamrim teaching and practice, the Lamrim of Lama Tsongkhapa that we are studying together now, which really provides us the structured path from the beginning to the middle to the end. Right? If we follow this structure, we are not going to go, make mistake or fall into any kind of misconception and traps. That's very, very important. That's why in the Gelugpa traditions, oftentimes the many Gelugpa lamas and scholars, they use so much like critique, right? They're critiquing, right? Well, if you do that meditation, that's not right. If you do this one, well, you good, right? Seems like they're so critical of others' positions. It's not that, because they want all of us to be on the right way, a path that we don't fall into the different traps. Of course, in some special conditions, Gelugpas also recognize that those who have reached a certain high level experiences, and these individuals probably don't need teaching from the beginning and all of these things. They can be taught at their level, and then they can advance very fast. But if we assume that, well, we are the same people like them, they look like us, and we kind of jump after them, we are going to break our bones. We are not going to be able to achieve the result. And so it's always very, Gyeltsen is very cautious, right? In the global tradition, they always emphasize that, we do the practice properly from the beginning, foundation level, and build it up, right, systematically. Don't do the hop, stick, jump, and, try to hope get somewhere,
어디에다 그래서 제르무시 가르사다 기라면서 캐러 봐봐 시야디 이니 조지 현에 자가에나데 부엘레나 카레나 그 산지 거부터 그 루토도 그러 타데 제르무 직바리 또뭐 시중 하도 말마 시나 이니 람리 티덩러부디 리마데다 제르무시 나기들의 그 땅을 파펴 제문도 저는 스페시 하고 그러 뭐 지켜들 메자 세다 노르사 몽고셰 세다 각교 노사자메 국교데 잡셰 세다 gelukchal be sodoma bo to paje na shibundwa dike lame de ma jing de khai mare de so nyam lenge te so so be kar to phoe ju de lebung be khus se ma je chong ja ta ina lo de ra ta jer ma de da so so kong du shong ma yo nong du shin shong ra ji me da de le da.
Of course, all the realized masters from any traditions, if they're on the same level, we cannot say one is superior or better than the other, right? Maybe there are other masters who have equal realization as Gyeltsen. So they are on the equal level, right? We cannot judge them one as better than the other. But in terms of the approach to guide and lead the students, Gyeltsen is highly praised for being very systematic, very structured, very critical of all the errors and the mistraps on the way, right? So he doesn't want us to fall into the traps, and that is one of the sort of a strong, characters of Gyeltsen. So that's why in the monastic study curriculum of the global traditions, there's so much emphasis on understanding the teaching correctly, and therefore metaphysical debate is part of that. How we have to understand what kind of misunderstandings and traps are there so that we don't fall into those traps and try to understand the path correctly. And so if we follow the Gyeltsen's very systematic, structured approach, there is really in some way no way to make a terrible mistake here, and then we find ourselves in a very wrong path, otherwise, it is very possible that we are just looking at everybody else or what they are doing, and some of them are very high level, and then maybe they are doing some other practice, and we think, okay, I'm going to go join them, right? And then we realize that we are not at their level, and then we goof and we don't, grow spiritually. So therefore, we as a practitioners have to be very careful, coping other practitioners, what they are doing. We should know where we are and follow a systematic and structured approach.
That is the most that Nindu is that Shangshismada Nindu is the Dami Gomachi, where you go Ganga, Yamsle Mansha, Shangshismada Chiwara, why should the Chiwareti in Kosobe any Nindu to get any San Yugomo top of the Shangshismada, Tarsan Yugomo top the world. What the colors and the Shendon, some features of your race, Donata Conde. Deji Ganga Yonsad of that be Shangshism Racing Sarava. Thank you for that longevity that Kerawa. That did that, didn't ever say Mare. That is the Conde Tamsi guitar, Gyeltsen is order that be the Simjan then Younger Seade.
So we're on page 58 at the top, where it stated that in terms of realizing the ultimate nature of phenomena, which we often call selflessness or emptiness, right, by different terms. In terms of that, even the highly realized Sharvakas and Pratika Buddhas, right, and they have the same realization. And their realization of selflessness and emptiness is not inferior in way to Bodhisattva's realization of emptiness. It's the same reality. But then why are they stuck, right, in the the peace of nirvana, and bodhisattvas, they move beyond that, and they on the way to enlightenment? It's just because bodhisattvas have learned to cherish all sentient beings, right? whereas Shervakas and particular Buddhas, so they haven't developed the same spirit of enlightenment or bodhicitta to be able to cherish others. So that's where, their limitation is, whereas the Bodhisattvas are able to advance much further. So the point here we are trying to make is, bodhicitta is the source of all the goodness, happiness, in samsara and beyond samsara, right? And if we want to be happy in samsara and we want to transcend the samsara and go beyond samsara, right? Even bodhicitta is the way to go. So in the middle of page 58, we have a quote from Nagarjuna's commentary on bodhicitta. So it's interesting, I think in the Tibetan text I listened, the word attachment comes, right? And the reason why the Shervakas, they realize what we call inferior is not the right one, maybe the lower state of enlightenment is because they lack attachment to sentient beings. But here the attachment is to be understood as cherishing sentient beings, right? They have forsaken, in a sense, or to cherish sentient beings. So therefore, even though they have realized quite a high level of realization, but they are stuck in, relatively speaking, a lower level state of enlightenment. Whereas bodhisattvas, because of their attachment to sentient beings, means they learn to cherish sentient beings, right? Therefore, they go beyond that state and they're able to achieve the highest enlightenment. So as we cultivate bodhicitta, spirit of enlightenment, and we familiarize ourselves more and more with it, as we develop that sense of intimacy and enhance it, deepen it, then we could be in a situation where it is no big deal at all or difficult for us to sacrifice different parts of our body if this benefits sentient beings. Cutting of one's head or parts of one's body to benefit sentient beings, that is not going to be any difficult task. Because of this familiarity and intimacy with bodhicitta experience.
Those go much Geshe go much can you come at them and he doing it Thomas on in the Sunday daughter social big the walk and pong in the country social the cable that mother in Namil Juyak Tindia in the lot of the common yours. She that did the Geshe Jabati in he that not where you race or that not where you wrote that. So this is I think of you.
So if we cultivate bodhicitta or spirit of enlightenment or this awakened state of mind, we use all these terms, right, to capture what bodhicitta means, Changju is the same in Tibetan. And so as we familiarize more and more with this state of mind and experience, so later, we find ourselves naturally dedicating for the well-being of others, right? We don't really now have any interest to pursue our selfish goals or interests. Because of that bodhicitta mind generation and habit that we find ourselves engaging naturally and happily to promote others' well-being. So that kind of attitude and action, basically, the bodhisattva's actions are praiseworthy.
저 다는 수이다 들어 다 들이야 다다데 다 롱더 릭바시 거기 기존의 시대 관계 이게 이 현존시 표현 런진지 님이 들어 롱지고 뭐 릭바 관계신 제로 다 디고 담배 송주게 있는 뭐 송부 있다 까돈라마도 까돈라마도 냠용도 송샤다 야 ngzu he de ban gi da yo ma ro ko ya so de nyam yu song xia di cik no a zhe xie ni so sem lo so yo ba so di xia ni in la ma ko ma di song de song gu yi se
No, sure. And so here Rinpoche's approach to how should I say, his composition and teaching, Lamrim, is that he will employ what we call valid reasonings, right? Rationality to establish different pros and cons of different realities and things, right? And then he will also, cite scriptural authorities, right? Authentic texts and sutras to be able to substantiate his point. Okay, so he said, I have done that, right? I have to, presented to you, why it is not good to engage in self-cherishing attitude based upon reasoning, based upon spiritual authority. And I've talked about the benefits of cherishing others based upon valid reasoning and critical analysis and based upon scriptural authority. Now what I want to do is add a little more power to all that, and that I want to quote the words of highly realized experienced masters. So he's going to now share a lot of the words of the great Kadamba masters, right? As Geshe says, these Kadamba masters are highly realized ones. So their words are not like somebody like me mouthing it. It really comes straight out of their experiences, right? So these words are loaded with their experiential insights. So now Rinpoche says, I want to quote, right, some of their words.
어디 주어심을 hen 대송res 참바드 인제 좀에 이게 정식스버디 부회하고 그래서
So great Master Atisha sitting over there, representation. So he was quite critical of the ways some of the Tibetan practitioners were practicing. He said, I think it's only in Tibet. There are those of you who claim that one could be bodhisattvas but don't need to cultivate love and compassion. I haven't. So he's very critical about some of the Tibetan practitioners. You are the ones who accept bodhisattvas with no love and compassion. So I don't get it.
Today that you're things are you're 문이야 다 예주사와 인자가 매월 에너지 심제도 상제도 인도도 신경도 배 망고요 다 지금 다 가도도 송도 마음은 이 신예도 배 주마 소송 싶은 용거랬어 대다 레레기니 세고 잠을 내버려 용거래 송도 진짜 니네 주마 라 주마 뭐 소송들이
어디다 하고 있게 슝데 가서
라
마디 숭사
잠을 내봐서 망고
말마디 슝 숭사데 콩디
라 흉대 가듬나 가듬 숭르다 포도 인사
So Geshe feels that probably not that he said that way, but that's how I want to put it. Not that it's our job to point a finger at any particular individuals. Probably today, even today, so there could be a lot of those who really make that assumption. I want to be bodhisattva. I don't want to cultivate the renunciation. Right, that seems a little low for me. Right, I don't want to cultivate that. I just want to jump right there, and I think I have a love for all sentient beings. Kind of got caught up in that abstract sentient being. Like I love sentient being, abstract notion, but really you don't love anybody. Right, then think, okay, now maybe I can be bodhisattvas. Right. So that's a terrible mistake. So we got to be very careful. And as a matter of fact, Kadamba Geshes many of them are very straight shooters. Right? They don't mince the word. They say as it is. Right? They have no business to be diplomatic or anything. They're just straight shooters. So I think Geshe Podaba was the one who said, in the future there will be plenty of all this fake teachers, meaning Dharma teachers, who will kind of give you that facade image that I'm the realized one, I'm the qualified one, and but basically they are not qualified at all. So Geshe Podaba said it.
어디 제가 주어시 뭐 데레스 가서 사회 배가를 지디 쇼르스 베도바 나레사
No, sir.
셰다 디 로조 예 니제도 잡아 봐라 디 도마 나도 이 수직 열어야 쇼르 도바 쇼르스 도바 제마서 송베레사
No, sir.
인 롬도 베니 카르셰비스 이 kinda 베게 소사 디바전 드레면 지금 말아봤어
No, sir.
다 시등한테 쉬어봐도 샴교지 샤고봉으로 실라디 다 역시 진다 거요 뭐 링거 말았어 다 샤고 송스도 와
Hello, sir. So Geshe recalls that once great artist was, invited to conduct the bodhicitta ceremony, the ritual, right, to generate bodhicitta. So at a monastery called Samye Pekarling, so there was like sponsors, right, sponsor the big events and a lot of gathering, and then Adisha performed the ritual and ceremony. And then at the end, Adisha kind of told Domdamba, his main disciple, I think nobody really got the bodhisattva vows today, right? He said, how come? He said, well, it's not that easy. To generate bodhisattva vows, you should have amassed a lot of merit and all of those things, so nobody's really here. Then he said, well, maybe should we add more offerings and, generate more? He said, let's not, do that because now sponsor might get disappointed, like nothing happens. So just leave it alone, So this is what happens.
셰다 다티 쇼제 대구 승조 어찌 레샤 다티 기도 셰바세 안데 간데 셰고세데 어느 지도시는 당보니 걸음시 디랑니 애니 셰바시 고 송사 어디다 다 당기디 애니 렌저상야 두고 두고와 어디 가서 당보는 미니 지금 신문이야 당보는 이내가 전주서부터 위해서 아주 미국에서는 표현도 말했어 나거
So on top of page 59, we quoted, Atish, make this critical comment about some of the Tibetan practitioners. I think you are the only Tibetans who know there are bodhisattvas with no love and compassion, right? I don't get it. And then, someone asked, okay, then how should, we understand this and how, what is involved in becoming a bodhisattva? So that Atish said, I quote, they must learn in stages from the beginning. In other words, we have to follow the path systematically, right? If somebody is thinking that, I just don't have, I want to just start my practice and study from the advanced level, bodhisattva level, and then become bodhisattva, there's no way to do that because we have to start from, right, the initial level practice, then go to the intermediate level, training of the mind, right, at least cultivating those other practices where, as we talked about earlier, that really understanding the law of karma and its outcomes and respecting and following it is a very crucial part of our practice.
어디 다 랑당의 현인사 셔바딩 인일라 근데 메답 접게다 따답 주구요 따답 적다 주구요 메답는 정주의 심계니 지지 심계에 있는 돈도 로바티인스 따답 네 정주스 맞제바 메제바 그래서 정주 따답는 정주스 맞제바 메제바 미니신 표도 메다와 다진디 예베스 델 소르테네스 델라 소르테네 진우디 종 심진을 티테네 지분이 제바 인송사 어때 다 도다르디나 다 레가도 게 메다스 따다지 좀 줄고 있었다 메다 쪽그들 심진을 야 강편도도 시야데 가지 다 접지데 데레다 다 따답지들 인 라진딜 야 종다야디 있어다 저주sem데 당보 깨미지 깨나 양양조체 강가 때버도 강가 시게 코레 시 콜레야 소땡기스 나도 계절이야 소땡데 티된사야 말해 어디 그래
So then on top of page 59, the second paragraph, where Geshe Langri Thangpa, another great Kadamba Geshe, said, Geshe Shavuba and I have, this like 19 different strategies of the techniques, right? Of course, I think those the things we said, 18 human strategies and one horse test, but with some Tibetan expression doesn't seem to go well in English for me anyway. So, simplify the matter. Well, he said, Geshe Shavuba and I have this 19 different strategies. The 18 of those strategies are to do with, cherishing sentient beings, and but the last strategy is really kind of a, challenging, self-cherishing attitude. Because self-cherishing attitude is the one, in the beginning, it prevents us from respecting and cherishing sentient beings, right? But even if we cultivate some sort of cherishing attitudes towards sentient beings, again, self-cherishing attitude messes it up, right? And then it declines in us, right? We lose it, degenerate. So the self-cherishing attitude is the real culprit. So therefore, our last technique of the strategy is to clamp it down, right? So we have 19 techniques. That's what Geshe Langdu Thangpa said.
Da Geshe Domba la se da yao zhou da ba nian zhou shi mo se de qi is ro. In ko long yom zhu la so bi ding yin zi de den de ye xie be. Che la na zhe ngou xie dong jiang mi xi be gou mi yue jiang xiang ba de yin ji xiang zhu yi si mian ne yin zhen de xiak ba xiao gui be se sa ji wa yin xie song de se su mi ji su jiu la so bi me gu ne de ji yun zhuo yu ba goma nang tira da kanji yao dong zhong dong wala ya nian zhou shi mo ga ko be ga ro zhu in ding yin de bi ga ngou xie dong na la ya long mu de ding yin de ding bu xi wo yes xi bi de sai se di xi de da chuna ding yin de ding bu xi na xiang zhu sem da in yin xie me na in de be da tira da me gu ne ja re se wo ro ba se de zhu li xiak ba xi ga ji mo de xie de fa su ya le ga ma re xi wo da ko ji yin zhe de xiak ba xi ga ne se se de wa se de qiao ju se me na da ka ji ding yin de wo yo na da ka zhe yo na xie da ka zhe pa sa jia jie yo ma ro ba
So in the middle of page 59, once, it seems like another master by the name of Ninjoba Chimbo, the great yogi, he went to see Domdamba and he kind of bragged a little bit about his own accomplishment. He said, you know what, I have really developed this firm meditative stabilization, and if I enter into my meditation, nobody can disturb me. And Domdamba said, yeah, you might have that kind of meditative stabilization that somebody can even, kind of beat the big drum in front of your ears and you don't get disturbed. But without, compassion, love, and bodhicitta, you don't get anywhere, right? Be careful. Maybe I advise you to engage in confession day and night, because your meditative might lead you into rebirth in the formless realm and, not get anywhere better, right? So that's what it is. So somebody could have such a stability of the mind, but if we lack love, compassion, bodhicitta, then we are not going to get that far in terms of spiritual development.
Oh, da dine karsa kamlung be xie ni kambalung ba sa ji ra ka dam raja ju simjin la se yole che di xie be simjin jang wo ja la de da wong song sa da ko ji yole che ji se na simjin ba pen ba qi ji ta ji simjin be tong qi ji zhe bu xie sa na in simjin de so ga ba chao mu de so da ko
and then another Kadamba Geshe Kamlungpa, he said that, if we really learned to sincerely dedicate ourselves for the well-being of sentient beings, then sentient beings will react positively to that. They will like you, right? So if we learn to dedicate for the well-being of sentient beings, cherishing them, helping them, then the reaction we get from sentient beings is they are going to, give you the positive response,
Oh, that's some good years on. That didn't my jerry, which is the Tibashi was saw so much. That Tibashi will be sure Tibashi was sure carriers and what saw so much of the what they tell to the super. Tibashi was saw so much of the teaching me saved any German mind, but 2 minutes times in Della and a tongue do base, 2 times in Della Lord Jing Shua Della. Yen licks, my yen, tether media, but tether don't be tab ye, don't be getting day. Tell Lord Jones, draw the 1,000 draw, tether, but don't be sooner like wounded tal, tea, you so. Dig a rebajo. Royal tether to Lord Johnny, Sabon Sanga, Tim Yebe, Tengawa Le, Ton Mishung, Gawarik, that is the word. Or the Tibasamulia, Churchy with the Shama the Angel Ralegoris. Or the Sherati is a 2 times in the Lord each bed. Yeah, touch it, you can make it out. That Canada, what of us, that good to my general mom told their mother, that just a mother's Shama is a mobile jail, pick a bomb, Gyeltsen it 10 in Karza. 디게야 탑시 시고레스 저 초상보도 줘야다 디데시 도지도이나 anything 게제 제바 좀 랑지디냐 보다 또 셰베이나 anything 저 동충중 말이지 이제도 동충보 줘요 그래서 봐 동충아 무슨 말이야 어디서 다
So at the bottom of page 59, now Rinpoche is summarizing the points here. He said, now he has already quoted some of the words of the Kadamba Geshes, their experiential insights, and now he's just trying to summarize. So he said, this is the point I'm trying to make here, that in order to kind of lay a firm foundation, the root for Mahayana path and practice, we must focus on these attitudes, I think. And these attitudes meaning love and compassion, right? Cherishing others. And and this is worth focusing on cultivating these attitudes. And if we do develop them, that's very wonderful, isn't it? Even if we don't develop them right now, but we must continuously strive to cultivate them in our mind, even if it means like making dedication prayers, or finding qualified teachers, who can instruct us on how to cultivate them, maybe being with in the company of Dharma friends, who are interested in cultivating this, right? So that we have positive mutual influence. It is worth focusing on these things, to get rid of the obstacles for cultivating these attitudes. The big one is the self-chasing attitude, and think about the benefits of cultivating this attitude. So if we do that in this life, we might feel like I'm not doing much, but actually we are doing greatly meaningful things.
Teaching Jugor Karsa, teaching Sugar Jude, Musi Don Shishiba, Nim Karsa, Nindata with Shanju Sim, Ever Baby, Gale Room, Hereson without Rosa, that is a Shoshimus only any Piggy Karsa, that Ranjinzi, any Dagzi to Mombasa, any Shanju Sim, any slow Johnny. That way, Lela Gangi Hiramication, they have already gave about the Jongsuna and Jangre, so that didn't see your marriage.
No, sir.
As on
the top of page 60, we have a quote from great Indian master Atisha. And so what Atisha tells us here is this, that cultivating such attitudes are really opening the door to enter into Mahayana path and practice, and so if you cultivate love and compassion, this will help us, metaphorically speaking, to dispel the darkness of self-cherishing attitude and self-grasping. So Atisha really strongly advises us that even if we don't, succeed in generating them right now, but we should consistently cultivate them, and we should not ever think of, changing our mind. But little, tasks of the works, we start doing it, and we think, okay, this is not working out, we can drop it, right? We can start new initiative. But these are the initiatives that we must carry out, right, to the end. So we must not have a change of heart, halfway or something like that.
That is that Sim the Karasa, Sim Kona, Sim Geshe, that he Sim Kia, Shogati, that didn't Sim Dene, because they were to Shason, the Ken Shajusim, Doma language or what. So Doma Lanata, Kaji, Payosha, or what, that you Kelan Maji, Sim get to care how to pay you, Mato Yomara. Doma Lanzana, any Yinanda, Kajala, you will call so much about it. Did the Shinala Digo, Shajusim River, or the Gapel Digo, or Dishes, or the language, or Shushim Song Cassie was at the Shushim take care of John, Dova Ye, Shamsot Sangbe near Shebo, Bibet in the Gumshevi, Shah the Chado says, Yanta Shoga Shibi, Shesum Batas, 로정의 심지와라 싱예바 땜바나 스티가 다들 샤바의 인제 성배니 있어야지 샤브도 심이 해와 그래서 당연히 정서계와라 샤브도 심이 좀 먹으면 좋아요 말아 어저 고네 엔 차도다 해당서 봐 해니 오늘 장사 샤브도 때문에서는 엔 속에 송구래 어떻게 해서
So we're on page 61 at the bottom, unnumbered page. It's a 61, and those of you probably you have iPad version. Now the title says "How to Adopt the Spirit of Enlightenment Through Its Ritual." Okay. So as Geshe explained, that before we really decide to take bodhisattva vows, we should train our mind in cultivating love and compassion. Okay. And develop interest in bodhicitta. So if we have, acquainted our mind like that, and then where we feel like, okay, now really I want to dedicate myself for the well-being sentient beings, then we should take the bodhisattva vows. Okay, there's a difference between simply generating bodhicitta without the vows and taking the bodhisattva vows. When we cultivate bodhicitta without taking the vows, when we're actually generating it, of course, we are creating a lot of positive energy and merit. Yeah? But when we are not doing it, then that's that. But once we take the bodhisattva vows, then by the power of the vows, if we keep them well, right? Even if we are not doing anything, we are sleeping, right? And we're just walking, there's a constant generation of positive energy or the merit. So there's a big difference between generating bodhicitta without the vows or making the commitment, bodhisattva commitment. So that's why Atisha tells us, so on page 61, and Geshe quoted those lines, and explanation given is before we really decide to take bodhisattva commitments of the vows, we need to also train our mind in the four immeasurables, right? The immeasurable love, compassion, equanimity, and joy. So once we have certain experience of that, so that will facilitate us to be able to generate bodhicitta. When we cultivate the four immeasurables, what we see happening in us is that we either don't become jealous of others. Okay, maybe jealousy is minimized, and we don't hate others, right? Be angry, mad with them. And so these are really, really positive conditioning things for us to be able to generate bodhicitta and make the bodhisattva commitments.
Well, that nobody that mother Tabasha Tava Minu song, Yana Church or some shit, that Tango that Lesa Util, Karasan, any Lama de Tigo Resi. Shall you see Muslims and take Mari, Jugdum Yuba Google Resi or that Pusun one is that Jugdum. There's a Util Lama that.
No, so.
The level on the Jugdum Higres, Dalinam Jesadi, Zaraoti. Because Domba and David because the Tedu song, she so much Timber non was that. Dalinam Shongi Lane, Shongi the Domba do then Domba, she knew the Domba and David in the Lameshon Rogue said that the Muslims and Shogma Shongi with Domba God said in Tungudos, that we show Jigri. She said, Kaji, Domba should that the Muslim year was saying to Maris, Shongi with Shongi years ago.
No, so. So then, what is involved in conducting and participating in the ritual or the prayer ceremony for generating bodhicitta, spirit of enlightenment? If you ask, there are a number of things. The first one is the person before whom you adopt the spirit of enlightenment, right? From whom do we receive, or in the presence of whom we generate bodhicitta. And so according to the master Tala Namgyal, he says that the Lama or the teacher, master, from whom we receive the bodhisattva commitments or generate it, must be someone who has bodhisattva commitments. It's not enough for a Lama just to have the aspiring bodhicitta, but not the engaging of bodhicitta or the bodhisattva vows. That doesn't work. The Lama who is conducting the ritual must have the bodhisattva commitments, okay? And that's the important part.
다 추집에 도서야 되는데 송에서 아니 해긴 진짜 저는 세비제발 니도 때네 디 도마찌 그래서 송에서 와
No.
진짜 디 송야 그래서네 디 니도 그 꾸마다니 도마 렌슈니 좀아도 렌세 때인데 니도 샤고 말했어 대 정동고거라 이제 뭐고서 어디다 동조시도
So towards the end of page 62, where there's a reference to Dasha Bhumi Sutra or the 10 Teaching Sutra, where maybe the statement sounds like that one might be able to generate the bodhisattva commitments with the help of Sharvakas or the hearers. But the actual meaning of that statement is that Sharvakas could motivate us to be able to take the bodhisattva commitments. We cannot take the bodhisattva commitments from Sharvakas as teachers or gurus, right? Because they don't have them. But the Sharvakas can be really good sort of motivators, right? They will say, maybe you are ready to do that, or maybe that's your path. So through their motivation, it is possible to generate bodhisattva vows.
그래서 다 레베데 강사 진짜 진짜 레지포 푼소 대 셰소부터 하다 놀라서 봐 300권이 무슨 게로 탐지 데데요 롱데 럼롤레로 다디 정동내야 될 단디나 대송도와 그래서 무슨 게로 그 강가게 때 강가래 엔 죽도 레롱 그래서 야 디는 소리 지르기디 단다 데르다 무슨 냐와다 저 년소자요로 죽동도 연하여 말아
나래
디저다 데 가네 무슨 게와다 디 하다 메토들레다 인가롱 그 게오라 디 온데셔면로 시 무슨 게데 데가 죽동데 시양 말아 죽동죠 하도 메고로 무슨 게알에 엔 도와를 줘가야요라 어디 알아서 괜찮나
Now, who can adopt bodhicitta or participate in the ritual and make the commitments? Maybe there is some kind of some sense that anybody who is capable of generating aspiring mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, can also participate in the bodhisattva commitments. Right? That's how some viewpoints come up, but that's not really necessarily the case because we know that. Theoretically speaking, any life basis in the six types of beings in samsara can generate aspiring bodhicitta, but not all of them are capable of making bodhisattva commitments. So usually, those who are capable of doing that are the humans and the small g gods, the divine beings.
어디다 건 렘베 땡데 다 땡들 다 상주심 뭐 죽동 렘 상주심 고그래서 고고머리세도 가서 다 녀자 뭐 다 디히자도 시나 디고그래서 나르 해와도 샴바드 인기도 로장네 에네 비게 심제 비게 상주심 지야 카즈 뭐해 봐 이 인기를 용어 중세 통곡을 성도아 다 이기 용어 배청이다 봐 고고 있어 말이 인기 용어 중세다 상주심 원에 맞잖아 디고서 다 제르 다도도 딘서 비디오다 어디 들으스 또 카게는 니 용화 통해야 돼 인기를 용화 통하다 지상 정주수 용화 통해야 돼 가가지고 그래 정주수 용화 통하야 디스고 현에도 학동자 통해서 와 정주수 공동 제금해야 돼 와 제금 용화 통해서 라고도 그거 와 다다디 지진도 자이는 근데 지진 이자피 돼요 가지 정주수 계속은 현에 학동도 더 해서 다다다 체부고 그때 다 가서 제르면서 가서 인기를 용화 통고스 이게 용화 왜 통고마다 중세에 봐 이게 용화 보라 통 자주심 제도로 그것도 중세에 그래서 너는 렘베 가사데 가시베 다다 인제 세메시도 장 인 뒤가 자주심 제하게 이게 용화 중세에 봐 수나 내셔서
So who are really suitable or qualified or maybe ready to make the bodhisattva commitments, if you will, vow commitments? Well, there are different, again, viewpoints here. According to Gyeltsen, he says that, those who have trained their mind in cultivating love and compassion, right? Before that, we talk about the 4 immeasurables, right? Cultivating, and then we cultivate love and compassion, and then someone who really sincerely wish to cultivate bodhicitta, spiritual enlightenment, has some experience, not the real bodhicitta, but right, you have certain experience. I really want that, and certain experience. So such individuals, can participate in the ceremony and take bodhisattva vows. But in some other, teachers, they said, in order to take bodhisattva vows, you must have bodhicitta experience, the real bodhicitta. Then it gets more complicated, because in order to have real bodhicitta experience, you should have calm abiding and special insight, combined. So then it's much more stricter. But the Rinpoche points a little different. He said, you don't have to have real bodhicitta, but you should have certain mental experience with that. Yes, I want, right? I have kind of thought about it, and I have certain experience. That's like a mental orientation. Maybe that's the right word, right? Mental bodhicitta orientation in your mind, and then you can participate in the ritual.
어디 다 들으면서 주민 용어서 돈 닦고 삼았던 라서 카드 이게 디제 구구로와
No.
다 디제비는 유제 삼노땅 시디단 다 탑고서 디 쇼그로 민게 디제미지 다 그저를 때 자야지 딱문이 모두 타면도 상 유제 삼노땅 딱 탑고야 문이 레게 삼니 이는 삼노땅야다 셈 구조자다 갈라 냠도 티모도 대수는 에네 피제 제지 용어 때
So I think maybe Yijuri Nyowa means this mental experience, literally translating. So I call it bodhicitta, mental orientation, right? And so where you really consider all these reasons why bodhicitta is, essential for enlightenment. And so considering all the reasons in your mind as you do that, it's not like you're engaged in only in intellectual exercise of some kind, but this also impacts your mind. Like, yes, I want to develop bodhicitta. So even that kind of mental orientation, so then you could participate in the bodhisattva, making bodhisattva commitments.
어디다디 그래서 저주심 좋아서는 이 제바 로야 걸에 기지 작동을 말하고
No. 다 간지 디 초가디 손을 숨고로 베게.
근데도 다 저주심 뿌라 조그러. 근데 초가디 니게 자자마 마동샤.
저주심 알루 조선아.
어디 저주심 좋아서는 이 작동 기지 부대도 있어.
So Geshe wants to inform you that once we finish the bodhicitta section, right now we're dealing with the ritual. The ritual shouldn't take much time because it's few things to explain. So once we finish with the bodhicitta section, then we will go back to the special insight section, the Lakdong in Lamrim, right? I think it's the volume number 3 in English translation. So we'll go back to that. Okay, let me write this down. So we would like to yield the floor to you for questions and observations. Page 63. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Geshe, for your teaching. In the last chapter, exchanging self and other,
Right.
I was thinking of it in terms of the 3 Dharma seals, and I was most interested in the concept of anatta, non-self. So I wanted to ask Geshe to explain a little bit more about how the self-cherishing thought and anatta are related, or kind of compare and contrast.
Okay. 다단다 겐디 닥신 냠지 가장 순대거 와게 제네 코란디도 대 섬스탄치 되간이야 this 다 코란기 컨디션이 되리샤게 당매요 와게 최담제 다음에 버레세죠 와 디 섬로탄다기 토네 베나다 진진 le condition 뉴기로 와게 제 닥신 제야 편도로 가려면 디 데베 콜테 스킨 세션 나도 그러사 다음에 상바이나 그 대화식으로 와게 신신
다 다음에 삼나
now and 당진리야 데스타 포도로 와게 신신진리야 편도로 간데 용고나스티
편도 패지 용고다 그래서 진짜 진디의 당지 자와 있어거라 진짜 당매 떠서는 당지 성으로 거라 당지 성으로는 저와 얘기래다 저와 여르시
that equal the sessions now na so some tang da so wa ke
Tira 다 다음에 또 와서 내가 이제 be게 나서 흉심부터 흉디 송으로 주고 봐. 나 흉송으로 줘나 이 진지 대야 흉송으로 줘. 진지 흉송으로 줘나 이 현다 현진디 리야 흉견의 흉대 야라여라. 그때 디제 뭐죠?
Anatma or the selflessness, dogmatic in Tibetan, which when we of course first understand the concept itself, and my footnote, that's what we discuss in the special insight section. So when we really meditate on it, right, and it really involves a lot of critical thinking and all of that analysis, so that helps us to counteract our self-grasping, grasping at the self. So when the self-grasping loosens up, right, it kind of reduces, minimizes, then automatically the self-cherishing attitude is also affected. Because self-cherishing attitude, does not find necessarily a self to grasp at very firmly, which we are right now doing it. Okay, so as the selflessness, understanding, contemplation, it counteracts our grasping at the self, right? And so the grasping at the self loosens up a little bit. Then the self-cherishing attitude does not cherish the self as much as usually it does. So to the extent the self-cherishing attitude is minimized, reduced, we find it much easier to cultivate cherishing, the thought of cherishing others, right? That's the kind of connection we can see. That's it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. For many of us who have received tantric initiations, we usually take the bodhisattva vows before we do that. Mm-hmm. Is that the same ritual as this ritual that we just talked about here, or is that a different one? So is there like vows we're taking then vows we're taking later?
Right, yeah. Then I was again one couple of years, just some much sugar bucket, then the Yaman Tanjul and doing the Rogue. Dig it and that Changdum Landa did that under this one, Changdum Landa, the Chibare Kakacha.
That culture shows you Domalingo. So the tag now you all get it on any charge seminar on to
yeah, the rite of the ritual is same, right? Just as you do either in the self-initiation or those at the time of receiving the initiation. So the ritual or the rite is the same, generating both sattva vows.
Another quick question. For the 19 strategies, are those written somewhere? So we can the 19 strategies that
yes.
Are those available somewhere for us to look at, or?
What do you mean? Not
like in a book? Are they written somewhere? The 19 strategies?
Oh, I see. No, the Kadapa Geshe,
yeah.
Right? Was that? Ale tagiti imbagem Karsora Geshe. Alang the Tambar Surgery, Sharabanga Yella, Mitab Chupia, Tata Chigala, the quality of Shung in the lawyer, Westgoda. The Takara Sungu Takara,
Sungu Takara, Kadu than the parent cannot data, you came into.
Right. Yeah, Geshe said to that extent he has seen, there isn't any other text that explains or, illustrates that. So whatever is stated here in the Lamrim context, that's it, right? It's just like a kind of pit instruction advice, and that's it. So the 19th strategy basically, although in the English probably they translated, which I usually do very literally, and it gets weird, like one horse strategy. What is that, really? But it's a technique that really focuses on reducing self-cherishing attitude. Because you think that if you have self-cherishing attitude, it prevents us from generating cherishing others. And not only that, it prevents us, but even if we cultivate some cherishing thought towards others, again, we lose it easily because the self-cherishing attitude overwhelms us, So that's what but there isn't any text here seen, right, to explain that more. So if we just kind of try to simply summarize the 18 strategies of the 19th world, what it's really saying is, do your best to be able to, give importance to other sentiments, cherish them, and do your best to counteract your selfish or self-centered attitude. So that's what basically they're saying, but of course, No. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Oh, yeah, back to,
So, a couple of weeks ago, Geshe said that one does not need to develop karma binding, to have karma binding, fully developed karma binding, in order to be able to eliminate self-cherishing. And also, I remember that was his position actually, and I assume
Right.
Panchen Sonam Drakpas. 2 years ago, also he said that it's not necessary for one to have. I remember that 2 years ago, to have karma binding in order to develop uncontrived bodhicitta. But today, it was stated that in order to have uncontrived bodhicitta, one needs to have fully developed karma binding and special insight, union special insight.
Yeah, I did actually. He told me not. I don't have translate, but I did translate. But I did forget to mention it's not his position, but it was like for example, the Chijunpa, the textbook author of the Seriche, claims that. Yeah, it's not his. Yeah, so that's
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Now, I have a question about the adopting. Is the adopting the spirit of enlightenment through ritual? Is it the same as taking the bodhisattva vows? Is it one and the same thing?
단다 대게 초계권에 디 인지나 럽다 저러와게 저 전주 쌤 달랑 바생아 저 와서 내가 당한 저 당한 창동 랑 바서 라데 집어 차고 와서 달랑 말만 들어와.
장동 렌나데 시고 래.
Yeah. Yeah, it's same as taking bodhisattva vows. Yeah.
Explain actually, it seems
You mean
to be adopting the bodhisattva, the spirit of enlightenment. That really it's somehow it doesn't sound like taking the bodhisattva. Let's put it this way: taking the bodhisattva vows the same as developing engaging bodhicitta.
Yeah. I want to check what's in the Tibetan text, right? Again, 단다 디 먼저 단다 차베 디 람림나리아 초계권에 장동 랑 바스마도 전주 쌤 랑 바스라요 말하게. 장동 랑.
전주에서 넘버랑
전주 더 말랑 Yeah, I think maybe that's the English translation because I was checking, right? He said in the Tibetan text it is the ritual or the ceremony for taking Changdom Bodhisattva vows, not like bodhicitta, adopting bodhicitta, right? So I think in English probably, I don't know how they rendered it. For me, even the adopting, well, now this is where your translator gets critical, allow me much. The Tibetan word langba literally means to adopt, which sometimes I also use it. But in this particular case, the langba is better to be sort of, I should say, I mean, it can be receiving or generating or cultivating, something like that. But in the Tibetan, it is not the bodhicitta spirit of adopting, spirit of enlightenment, but it is, taking bodhisattva vows, right? Yeah.
다들 투야 지우서 무슨 소개를 해야 도와 무슨 소개를 해서 도발해야 갈 말봐 전주 쌤께 있어야 지로와 디거도 무슨 제자를 나서야 되면 돼 다들 무슨 제자를 나서야 되는 거다 그래서는 뒤도로와 전주 쌤 맞아 거기 도발하는 무슨 제자 저러고 어디에 뭐 전주 도마 가두이나 시들랑야 그래 도발거다 찍와라.
Yeah, Prabhupada Geshe thought maybe where confusion could arise is sometimes we say that we generate aspiring bodhicitta through rite of the ritual, right? So that sounds like right, But other times we say, through ritual or the rite, we take bodhisattva vows. And sometimes both are combined together. So we will say the rite of the ritual for generating aspiring bodhicitta and taking bodhisattva vows, right? So all those things. So sometimes maybe how we word it could be confusing, right? Yeah.
죽둠선나 저도 너무 찍바리. 내가 이 숭자도 숭토발 나무를 모두 가지고 나야 메세도가 무슨 데거다 나 장주 샘지게서는 이거 다 그 걔네 기나가요 말로.
So Geshe says that when it comes to conducting the rite of the ritual for giving bodhisattva vows, it is taken much more seriously than those who are really committed to abide by the vows. Otherwise, you don't easily conduct the rite of the ritual. But in terms of conducting the rite of the ritual for aspiring bodhicitta, there's not so much commitment. It's almost like, I kind of like bodhicitta, so can I? Like, okay, so that's fine. So you can do the ritual, right? There's not much commitment written forward with that.
So basically, this whole section about the ritual for adopting spirit of enlightenment, it deals with taking the bodhisattva vows.
Right. 관에 장dom래에서 장dom래에 관한
네, 장dom래고. 다 최대 무슨 소개를 해봐야지. 님도 좀 용으로와. 이번에서 장dom래 뭐 그런 식으로. 저기서 장산 템포에서는 도발을 했어요.
So it says like, once you have really acquainted yourself well with the bodhicitta, sort of have certain experience, mental orientation, and you feel like I want to make a commitment, then take the bodhisattva vows. So here the primary focus for the ritual is bodhisattva vows, although somewhere in the line they might also have some reference to the aspiring bodhicitta, Yeah. You have a question or something? No.
Is there? Did you? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It was said that the Shravakas, we've talked about it so many times, asking many questions about the Shravakas, but they're stuck in nirvana. Okay, the Shravakas are stuck in nirvana, so they don't progress beyond that, in their own nirvana. But it just occurred to me that while they are in nirvana, aren't they meditating constantly? Their mind is constantly engaged in meditating on emptiness, which means that if it is, then I don't know if that's the case, but that means that they will continue to burn the imprints, to eliminate the imprints of ignorance, and therefore they're continuing to progress towards enlightenment.
You said the imprints of the ignorance. So by that
Self-grasping.
You mean the obstruction to
enlightenment. Yeah, to enlighten, to obstruction to omniscience, right?
Okay. Quran kan shoje diregen ta tanda niente yorwagen niente ta tajumba sene mindu ta tabatu den yorwagen dige di ta re mi kasko ta de shenbeng samlo maza Quran zo ta tarbe shide gi dilya ta ga de yorwagen in ta din shide na ga su de Quran zo ta ngazo in di yomaro ke ta tame be ngus to de de nyambar shan yorwagen urs kor de yorwa sarwa kisi del u kor de ge yobina ko tame al komdi shibu chedu yosana 아니 데려봐도 녀모베 박자스도 그 시립식으로 와게 시립디 갈갈갈 거라 세주고 말베서 저거 거 상제로 말스 갈갈갈 거 가서 배 당매 거는 검지 데디고 와게 박자디
진짜지야 뭐 그래서 이 조조의 정주심 총유송의 탑유송의 상 얘기 말아
나래
제가 정주심은 다사지야지야 뭐 나는 사람 그때 거는 거야
나래 yes Geshe said as we often say that in order to achieve Buddhahood enlightenment we must integrate both method and wisdom, right? And Shravakas, let's assume, who have realized the selflessness as it is, maybe those who have actually attained the nirvana, yes, they have tremendous wisdom part. So if you completely lock themselves in that meditation, they are lacking the method part. So therefore, they're still stuck. They're not going to, but simply meditating on the selflessness experience is not going to help them to eliminate the imprints of imprints of delusions which are the obstruction to knowledge. That requires integrating the method or the what we call a bodhicitta in this case.
The only thing actually what actually eliminates the imprints is the wisdom part. It's the meditation on emptiness. What is the point of integrating method and wisdom is so that the meditation will continue. One will continue to meditate strenuously on emptiness. Or have the motivation to engage that. But actually, what delivers the goods, enlightenment, is wisdom. Okay.
Quran this or Geshe tang azo karuso gore ta ko dit samdan de sorwa ge ta karuso gore ta lam gi gawsa sam so de ko nyomo cha de wa ge nyomo se ya ya met merom ge ta nyembo san tabshe de ko sherab de de wa ge tab ge cha cha go mar wa so gore cha san tab sherab ge cha ko kom de de ka la ta di ko ta nyomo ba cha de se ku mar be so gore wa ge di nyembo cha de yo mar be so wa the tablia jidada tabshe sungru chagor wasna tab jene ko kom nyamlena juru go resra ba ge ina to so di nyembo de sherab so da sherab rang ge nyomo ba phacha de set gu mar wes ko da
tera ta karsa this go wa but this go ta go da ji riba bono de this go da chima rakba cha se yin ya ro
no
나 두고 정말 락바투다 라우사 이즈스 마이한테 추 디지션 지 동거야지요 말에 여러와 다 정말 차버디 유즈 뭐뭐 좀 추고도 그래서 들다 셔주스면 다 송지면은 땐 장토고 말 스콜 셈을 거야 된거지로 그런 거지요 말아 그 종을 교대로 되죠 가지라
as often in the teachings lamas use this example of cleansing our delusions or purifying it like doing laundry, right? So there can be two kinds of what called stains or dirts, right? That easily can be washed, right, with some soap. but then the stains that really requires a lot of detergent and other things to be able to remove it. So in the same way, the imprints of the delusions are very subtle stain on the mind. So in order to get rid of it, the wisdom itself is not enough. It must be kind of assisted by the bodhicitta, right? So that kind of an extra detergent power, right, need to be added. So we're just lacking there. So the stain is subtle, yeah.
일단 또 골고 그는 방도 해요와 이모 골고
Now,
자 골은 충충도 공부 첨부 방거로
now,
다 대리 가지 있어야지 골은 첨부 충충도 공부 첨부 방도 말아 자동대도 믿겨버 드세요 지식버서 쩌봐요와
no, so.
지들 말이 제가 테마타라 패신 테마락 뭐 보이더는 코트히라면 방라요 그래서
No, so.
인타디 님뭐 셔보고 그래서
알레.
스피에 당에 디르는데 버지
알레.
대지과래다
알아 곰린 충을 가서 곰바 충을 bomba
공부 충도 공부 첨부 방고
알아요.
방자 시는 방식으로 이거 좀 계속 어때래 그래서 가지 있는데 남충 방자 시야 방고 남시야 방자 시야 방고 근데 카드 그래서 공말 나와 무거 뺐던데 지가
알아 님부 충화데 이거 방자 내라
아
님부 충으로.
그 첨부를 그 내라요 그래서
No, so.
어디서
No, so.
근데 와전 닭바 이거 실리 해지 나서 누구로 와
나래.
자기들 무슨 거데 좋아요 말아 어디서 말해
So Geshe is kind of thinking, he's connecting this back to where we talk about, how on the path of meditation, right? So there are many different levels and many different obstacles. So there's like 9 rounds of obstacles with 9 antidotes to get rid of them. And so the explanation is that, sometimes for the bigger obstacle, the antidote is the smaller one, because those bigger obstacles are easy to get rid of, right? And and Geshe is thinking about, like, say, if there are like dirts, that can be easily washed away by water. But if it is like oil stain or something, then it's much harder, right? So kind of like that, yeah. All right, then I have an announcement to. Oh, go. Sure. No, you don't have, right?
No.
Oh. Okay, then yours.
Yeah, it was said, I don't know if it's somewhere I saw it, or even Geshe said that self-cherishing basically keeps the spirit of enlightenment from arising.
Right.
It prevents bodhicitta.
Right.
Okay, but going back to the 7 cause and effect, there's no mention of eliminating self-cherishing. The previous method, the Asanga's method, 7 cause and effect.
Okay. So there's no method.
There's no mention of self-cherishing there. So there is, and at the end they don't say that as you develop bodhicitta through that method you eliminate self-cherishing. So there's no mention. Does that mean that it's not effective or less effective? The initial.
가서 그래 신지압을 zembalaya 다 견제 최초로부터 개 과제 최초디 란진지로 와게 다 란진지를 전에 중국에서 먹고 순거로 와서네 얘네 코란 스튜디오 가서 다 당당 가서 뒤로 와게 가서 그래 군대명아 되는 거는 와게 샘 총단디 나를 군대명아 되는 디나리아 아니 란진지 뇌스베 탭된지로 와게 딜이야 아니 배 년부터 땡고를 세게 고구문도 와서 와게 배나베 답에 코란 랍단 저렇게 마시 체베네 란진지 뇌고 세ጆ로 와게 근데 걔 렉문디 가래나서 와게
근데 다들 저도 로정지 찍바리 절대 정지 문제 아니에요. 윤리 명아 뒤가 뒤에오는 저 인심이 랑주진을 가에 계속 해요 말봐. 그래서 윤리 명아 뒤가 해오는 다나 아니 소소 심리들 까디셔 뭐 마시 까디셔 뭐 샤니 해오로. 다 뒤고 흉상 보시네. 다배 소소 먼저 빈데 소게마 야부시다 시딩을 들을 पे लोया में ना मैं दूसरा ही बुझ के मारे वो ती क्यों सांभो शानी जोंदा जिरवा ता दागे न्याजा से आदि करो खादु करो रिपोर्ट न केमेन रो शेनी रंगजी दी से खारे 용도 와 रेंज दी खारे 용도 와시 저도 디 이셔도 사바리에서다 사정도 खादु 유전 시야 요러와 수 냠용대 저바다 거기 근데 동라고 가는 건 रंगजी दी के कं가서 하고 거다 수 직시된 잠저 쇼미 니다라고 गंगा सूरज इंसे द दी रादे वरवा ती मैंने यो मरवा सेदा द दक्षिण हम जे सावरे से सावतंग थे को जुजे समो तो हादवा न्यमयुं तो ठोया योरवा ता गिदे मंगा यदि को दा 흉 संवरण 신심 지야로 미세 기대 가요 말아
Okay, so I think that's so Geshe says in the 6 causes one result technique or the instruction for developing bodhicitta, you're right, there is really no particular mention of self-cherishing attitude as something that we need to tackle, because the approach that's adopted here is what we call shung sangwa, means kind of appreciative approach. So when we try to establish the parent-child relationship among all of us sentient beings, right? So then, from a kind of appreciative tradition, right, if your moms have been very kind to you, right, it is your responsibility, right, to be able to be kind back to her, right? And so that's the approach. So it does not, right? So it's in terms of appreciation, you said, people are kind to you, you should appreciate and be nice to them, right? That kind of approach. Whereas in the equalizing and exchanging self for others, now here it's really talking about, and here the approach is more analytical, reason-based, right? And so therefore the Lama said that this approach is in some sense more profound than the 6 cause 1 result instruction approach. Because here you really employ reasons, right? In what way self-cherishing attitude is nasty and culprit and hell like anything, and in what way cherishing others is the goodness of everything. So you employ reasons, and then you can convince yourself, right, through reasoning. So that's the approach, right? Yeah.
Loving the Minga Shu Nindi said, Daginyamida, any Kursa, you remember doing George and my Dama Shu Children Jeffrey, in Lamrin debate, Chambo is Sidua. You remember doing the Daginyam, some of the Jones on there, Kebaya, Quincy Yamdoshin, Shuksha Yungora, Jigmesa Jigum Suyong.
So that's one of the things there, when we talk about this kind of a unique characteristics of the Lamrim tradition is how Jerimbuche from onward, that the those traditions, 6 causes, 1 result, and the equalizing and exchanging self others are integrated together, right? So that's why the 2 powers are integrated. So now you have the most powerful technique. If you follow one of them, right, it might work differently, right? Because those who like to be appreciative and kind, so they go that way, and those who want to be more analytical and thinking, they might go the equalizing, exchanging self for others. But still, we might lack something here and there. So if you combine the 2, then all the powers and the benefits of the both are integrated. So very effective. So that's how we have an integrative method, right?
Is this what Kyabji Kubonk Dorji Chang is doing? I think that he integrates them together and comes up with 11.
Right. Aloko this agenda and the Kyabji Pawong Gidi Karsoda, Dinyam the Deje, Nyanzo can decarso, then the Sia Jukji or somewhere again. Did this one was
what did we go to yours?
Right. That's right. Yeah, the 11 what we call points or the rounds meditation. Yes. That's the integrated method, yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for wonderful discussion. Sorry, I've used my modern tool to confirm that I get the date right to announce something. Although I think you can tell me, January 4th is Monday, right? Yes. So I think through our GSTDL Yahoo group, we announced it already. Probably need to offer some clarification. January 4th, Monday, the New Year, in the afternoon at 2, those who have done the Vajrayogini retreat, okay? So GSTDL is organizing a self-initiation empowerment, right? So we go to the ritual and do the self-empowerment. And it starts at 2, okay? And we will take our time to be able to do it very slowly, well. But that day also happens to be the Tsok day, the 25th according to lunar calendar. So our regular Tsok offering will be at 7:30, okay, as usual time. And so those who have not only received the Vajrayogini initiation empowerment, but who have done the retreat, right? That's my clarification. Now I'm poking my nose into my business here. So they are welcome to do it. But those who have received the initiation, didn't do the retreat, you will be welcome in the future. So. Nos get under the Tangju Len Juagan or Dinian Sanshubin, Tarishi Ruagan, and Continental me one from the young did some Yemen or Wage, young Mount Wal Machine Marwagan, additional. Yes. Kange Lord Dimia Dinda, Ninda, Namda, Rosa, Jinian, Dungun, Geshe, Sije, Nije, Tuga, Lebams, Kanda, Sibe, General Marie, Mendon, Dungan, Geshe, Rosa, Gunla, Puji, Taze, Yang La, Juju, Yang Den, Son, Juda, Chedo, Numa. Lê Gia Zhao Zhou Zhe Zhe Che Ma Ri Min Se Dong Nge Nyo Wo Qin Ye Zhe Zhe Ra Di Nam De Nian Da Che Sa Ju Yun Den Lun Zhou Jia Se Tu Yu Gu Chu Zha Chu Da Chu Jiang Bei Yang La Du Om Ra Ba Zhen Na Di 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 Omara Baza Nandi Zende Kye Kera Virse Ye Dalu Temo Memba Rapsene Kada Tenje Shunglu Dom Lode Babe Na Zendo Su Lode Yazu Utung Pega Jin Kesan Pongbe Chudo Memba Tenba Zinla Wando Yicho Be Tangye Chokun Cho So on the page 21. Obeisance to my Guru and protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text, symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha, I bow down to you, Manjushri, Om Arapasanadi. O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Page 31. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate beings, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lobsang Tenzin Wangta, respectfully I pray.
Nhất tâm kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, bậc đại trí ngài điều phục hai chướng ngại, tự nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim ngài Bát Nhã Kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh, sở hữu 60 pháp âm thù thắng, cùng đại bi ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tựa từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử. Tiếng rồng vang ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp chướng. Gươm trí tuệ ngài chặt đứt vô minh, tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn. Trường tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác, ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thân ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh. 112 tướng hảo Như Lai, đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Om Arapasanadi, con khẩn cầu dưới gót sen bậc đại trí, ban pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh, được trí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa màu. Như rượu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đàn xanh nơi trí thủ thắng đại dương, hàng thiện căn như ông mật thọ nương, hồng danh ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá, đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá. Nam mô Lobsang Tenzin Wangdak, xin cung kính trì niệm.
Chê Sanju Senjo Rinpoche Ma Ye Ba Na Ye Ju Ye Wa Nyang Ba Me Ba Yang Gu Ne Gu Dong Be Wa Ju Dong Ni Da Wa Rinpoche Ma Ye Ba Na Ye Ju Je Ye Wa Nyang Ba Me Ba Yang Gu Ne Gu Pe Wa Ju Sa Ji Be Ji Ju Ji Me Do Zhang Ri Ra Ling Ji Nin De Yin Ba Sang Jie Xin Do Mi De Wi Wa Yin Zhuo Gun Xue Wa Ju Kang Ri Ra Wei Guo Wei Xin Gang Di Ri Pen Dang De Wa Ma Lu Zhong Wei Jie Ri Zi Wang Din Jin Yang Zhou Yi Xia Wei Si Dian Ba Du Din Ju Ji Yi Da Ma Gu Ru Ra Na Man De Lao Ni Yan Da